Sendhil Revuluri was appointed vice president of the Chicago Board of Education by Mayor Lori Lightfoot and began serving in 2019. And he's also the Treasurer's Office Outstanding Commitment in Education awardee. Mr. Revuluri was a founding teacher at the Bronx Academy of Letters, a public secondary school in the South Bronx, where he was recognized as a Math for America master teacher. He subsequently worked in the CPS Office of High School Teaching and Learning and at the University of Illinois at Chicago as Associate Director of the Suburban Cook County Mathematics Initiative, a project for collaborative improvement in teaching and learning benefiting over 40,000 K-12 students in 40 public school districts. Sendhil, let's start off by telling some of the viewers, what did you learn serving as a member on your local school council that brought to your tenure as vice president for Chicago Board of Education?
First, thanks so much, Treasurer Ferrick, for the recognition and really for recognizing everyone who's making a contribution to education in our state. I think there's four big things that I learned serving on my local school council. First, there are a lot of people who care deeply about our schools and making them better for all kids. We don't all have the same experiences, the same positions, the same opinions, but we all care and will be most likely to succeed the more we remember all of that and work to leverage all these perspectives. Second, communication is key to trust. People are coming from these diverse situations, they form different views, and so it's more important and also more challenging to engage all voices. And in particular, we need to meet people where they are, start with the values that we share, and then we can form common purpose and then figure out solutions. And this has been a big area of learning for me because I'm not super patient. Third, we're taking on important challenges, helping our kids get to the point where they can be full-fledged citizens with the ability to support themselves and their families, to have fulfilling lives, is a long-term challenge. And we always have limited resources, whether it's time, energy, people, money, space. We really need to take a strategic approach. We have to be clear about our goals and use evidence where we have it and figure out how to get it when we don't. And finally, we have to accept that there may be hard choices. That's true if you're in a leadership role or if you're a member of the community. We need to confront or even get ahead of those choices as much as we can. Because if we avoid them or if we deny them, it does not actually help us help our kids.
That's some great advice. I want to say how much I appreciate someone who preaches patience, but maybe doesn't observe it himself. I think I can relate. Your kids attend Chicago Public Schools, correct? How important is it that your children attend CPS?
It's really important to me for our kids, mainly because exposure to diverse perspectives is enriching in itself, but it's also key to broadening your thinking and becoming a better thinker. The more we sort ourselves, the more we surround ourselves with people with the same backgrounds, experiences, opinions, the more often we're going to be wrong. I attended public schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, all in Illinois, and I met a lot of people who were really different from me, grew up differently from me, and thought differently from me. And I think that was crucial to my later learning and my later success. But really more than just our kids, it's all our kids, all the kids of Illinois, all the kids of Chicago. We need to be engaged in and supporting public education because it's not just the diversity of experience, the quality of learning and the quality of support we provide all kids is essential to giving them access to opportunity and to solving the challenges that our society faces. You know, we're talking a lot about COVID vaccines this week. We're talking a lot about climate change. There's definitely a role for science. And certainly I believe in kids learning so that they can access opportunities in STEM fields if that's what they want to pursue. There's also a role for empathetic design, for building trust, for helping others to understand, and to manage effective implementation. And we need that for all kids if we're going to tackle these challenges effectively.
I applaud your commitment to public education in general, but throughout your career, you've made teaching children math a high priority. Why the passion for teaching this subject?
The thing I most love about math is that we can expect it to make sense. That doesn't happen in every field, at least in my experience. But in math, everyone has the same standard for truth. It doesn't matter if you walk into the classroom as a teacher or a student, you have to justify your thinking and justify your assertions. And our understanding of math, both individually and as a discipline, is enriched by having multiple perspectives and multiple representations. So when you bring more learners together, whether it's around a simple counting task for elementary students or different ways to look at functions in high school, the more ways that you have people engage and make sense, the more the math is connected and the more it supports further exploration and building in math and beyond. And also, kids get to have far deeper discussions than we sometimes give them credit for or give them space for. And in math, you can just get there sooner. We don't have to rely so much on their worldly experience, which might be limited. When we really empower kids to engage with the math and we push them to make sense and to justify their thinking and form arguments, we help them access the beauty and apply their creativity. And it really helps them become better thinkers.
I was working on math last night with my daughter. I also couldn't agree more on that. Now, your career in education has spanned a couple of decades, but this last year has been different than, I'm guessing, the first years. What are the challenges that come out of having to teach remotely? What have we learned from this? What can we do better? What is working?
That's a great question. I don't know that I'm the best person to answer this, but I have a few thoughts drawing on the experiences of friends and colleagues who've been both resourceful and innovative doing this through the years, and then really fast forwarding their practice during this last COVID year. In terms of the challenges, I think first, it's just less familiar. Changing structures and routines is always hard. That's why the first year of teaching is so challenging. But then when things change midstream, it's a lot of work. Second, the situational awareness of how kids are doing, how they're understanding, how they're making sense, how they're relating to one another is just fundamentally more challenging. We as humans have our senses to go on, and we have a more narrow subset of those senses when we're in a remote context. Third, and this is probably the biggest one, building relationships is way harder when you don't have informal, spontaneous interaction and you don't have the awareness to lean on. Our kids were both fortunate to be in situations this year where they had the same teacher as last year. And I think that really helped them and their classmates when they started the year in a fully remote situation. In a lot of cases, that wasn't true. And that was really hard. And it took, rather than the usual weeks, it may have taken months for the classroom community to form. And finally, I think getting kids to think is a balance of support and patience. One of the math teachers I respect a lot has a slogan that we need to be less helpful, because when we're too helpful, we take the opportunity for learning away from kids. But if kids don't feel supported just as people, it's really hard to hold yourself from being more helpful, because at least we know how to do that. And that's a much harder balance, I think, to strike when we're remote. That said, I think there are things that teachers have figured out and they can apply them as we return to a hybrid situation and then beyond. And a lot of that is around paying attention to student thinking and making that more accessible as the raw material for learning for the whole group.
Well, I think we talked for a while and learned a lot, but any words of wisdom you'd like to leave with individuals following in your footsteps, people who want to be agents of change? What advice can you give them?
You have put me in big shoes, but I will do my best. I think the first thing is to do your homework. That doesn't mean knowing all the answers, but it means being clear on the facts, knowing what you know and what you don't, and reaching out to people who have different experiences and perspectives than you do. Second, I think it's really important to know your why, because making change usually takes work, and it takes work through time, and it takes work sometimes through inertia or resistance. And that all takes patience and it takes persistence. And you need to know your why to keep you going. Third, I think it's important to understand the difference between the change you want to see and a position you may take. Because especially in a democratic system, but really in any system that involves multiple people, it's a process. It's not something that you can dictate yourself, and you have to figure out how to put those together to move forward. And finally, I think this is especially important in our city and our state. Any change you want to move forward, for it to really stick, has to be driven by a multiracial movement. it has to be driven by a coalition of people who may come from different places, may identify differently, but if they share your values, then you should be working with them. And the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I've really found that to be the case, even when it feels uncomfortable, when it feels slow, when it feels more effortful than otherwise. It's really important to go together.
Well, Sendhil, thank you very much for sharing this great advice to our viewers. I hope they'll take this to heart. But I want to thank you for your service, not to CPS, but to education in our state and serving our communities. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you. Have a great day.